Hey, son,
Howdy.
here's my idea. 5 stops. Mandatory 5-stop Monaco Grand Prix, you know? Or maybe we could put a few F2 drivers up in front. A little chaos, maybe. And then my last idea, which I actually think is realistic for Monaco. If you're lapped, you're out. As soon as you're lapped, you have to leave the track. All right? So, anyway, you ready to go, son?
I'm ready to go.
Hello, welcome to Hard Compound, the American take on Formula One. Just finished watching Monaco Grand Prix. Very fun qualifying. Less so the race. Though it was good for the white jerseys. Ferrari was wearing white jerseys for some reason. McLaren. So, worked for them. But man, speaking of McLaren, they're staking their claim. Only 8 races in, but they have a massive lead in the constructors. And Lando and Oscar both. I think Max is always in it. You can't count Max out. But right now, the big question is it going to be Lando or is it going to be Oscar? Because it pretty much seems like it's guaranteed to be McLaren. All right, so why don't you give me your top 5 for the Monaco Grand Prix and your reasons why?
All right. Top 5 for the Monaco Grand Prix, also known as F1's best Saturday. I mean, you got to give it to the guy who won his first Monaco GP, put in a stunning qualifying lap, a Monaco lap record, Lando Norris. I mean, he's been kind of down, getting pummeled a little bit by his teammate, and he staked his claim this week. So
he did.
Impressive from him.
70 seconds, they said. Like that doesn't seem possible.
Yeah, because what is it? It's like 3.5 kilometers or something like that around these tight, windy roads. In a minute and less than a minute and 10 seconds. Right?
Yeah,
that is impressive. Just to think about how much force on your body is required to do that. I mean, it's impressive from him. Then I'm gonna go with the Monegasque, Charles Leclerc. Ferrari finally looks like they're starting to get back on track a little bit. These last 2 races, Leclerc did really well in qualifying. He put in a lap that you sort of thought was going to successfully take pole until Lando's crazy lap. And then, he just raced a solid race, didn't get flustered by Piastri behind, had no real issues, just did well, and got another podium in his home race. So impressive from him.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because Ferrari looked good. It's not a home race for them, but it is for Charles. It's not too far from Ferrari. And they look good. I mean, really no mistakes. There was a bit of a miscommunication to Lewis in qualifying, but that's, that happens.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, Lewis probably should have finished in 4th place in this race ahead of Max. But personally, I thought it was a little bit of a harsh 3-place grid penalty. He did well enough to make up, a few positions and get back into it. But, I thought he did well in qualifying. I don't have him in my top 5 because I think there are a few other drivers that deserve to be up there. But, I guess honorable mention, maybe Lewis. That said, 3rd I have on my list here is Esteban Ocon. I mean, look, Haas is Haas, and they're still well behind Williams, I guess, for that 5th spot position. But Ocon coming into a new team and is just, I don't know, he's maybe the opposite of Fernando Alonso. Gets himself into horrible situations and seems to get bailed out. And, he got bailed out of that Alpine situation pretty nicely there.
You are correct on that. Yeah, he is.
But, he's done well so far this season and had a really solid showing for Haas in Monaco. So well done to him. And then the last 2 in my top 5, I am going to give to both Racing Bulls drivers, Liam Lawson and then Isaac Hadjar. Obviously, Hadjar had a slightly better qualifying and finished ahead in the race. But I think Lawson actually did more for the team in the race, considering he basically backed everybody up to make sure Hadjar could get his mandatory 2 pit stops in without, dealing with any traffic or needing to pass anybody on track. And then somehow figured out a way to get his 2 pit stops by himself and stay where he was. So I thought really impressive drive from him and Hadjar getting Racing Bulls back into the points. And if we're looking at the overall Red Bull organization, that's 3 of 4 cars in the points. That's a pretty good weekend for them.
That's a good point. And, we can sort of complain about the racing of the Monaco Grand Prix. And, the top 5 finished exactly as they started, with the bit of the exception is Lewis getting the qualifying penalty. And so he swapped with Max. But, you're right. 2 Racing Bulls, that's 2 rookies, made it in the points. Ocon with Haas made it in the points. Both Williams made it in the points. Had you told any of this before the race? You're like, no, that's not happening. Both Williams, a Haas, 2 rookies, both of them with Racing Bulls. So there is that at least. All right. I generally agree with your top 5. Lando, Leclerc, Ocon, Liam Lawson, Isaac Hadjar. I might have thrown Albon in there. He just continues to perform week in, week out. So awesome.
Because you mentioned sort of the top 5 finishing in the same positions, but the top 10 finishers actually were basically in the same positions, right? Alonso had that mechanical failure, so he dropped out, which pushed Sainz up into the points as well. It was just Hamilton and Hadjar switched basically their starting positions to finishing positions.
No, right.
That was it. Yep. So realistically, this race, as incredible as Monaco is, it doesn't give us a whole lot of on-track action, unfortunately.
On Sunday, right. Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. So driver standings, with the win, Lando creeps up to his teammate Oscar. Oscar's still in the lead, 161 points. Lando, 158. So he's right there. That's close.
3 points.
Yeah. And then good distance back, Max Verstappen, 136 points. So, yeah, he's got to get 25 points. That's going to be tough. Those McLaren cars, Lando and Oscar know what they're doing. And that McLaren is so fast, and it succeeded basically on every track. Way back, 4th, George Russell, 99. His teammate Kimi Antonelli, only 48, less than half. Then in 5th place, Charles Leclerc, 79. Lewis, his teammate, at 63. And still nope. You mentioned Alonso. His car, it looked good in qualifying. It died in the race. Still no points. What gods is Alonso angered? I don't know.
Yeah, that's weird because, the Mercedes cars in the last few races have had some mechanical issues. So then Alonso has one in this race. You almost expected the Williams drivers to be struggling with stuff like that, but that car just keeps kind of plowing through. So, Alonso has just got to be, he was looking good for a top 6 finish, right? Yeah. And just his car went kaput. There are some things that he has no control over. And in the last 2 races, it's basically seemed like he should be in the points and then has some issue and doesn't get anything. So that's tough for him.
You mentioned Williams. They're in 5th place in the team standings with 54 points, which I think is more than 23 and 24 combined. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I think it is. But look at these standings. McLaren, 319. In 2nd place, they had a very bad Monaco. Mercedes, 147.
Oof.
That's not insurmountable, but damn close. Just 8 races in. Red Bull, 143. Ferrari, 142. So 2nd place is a battle. 1st place seems done. Who do you have as your biggest winners, team drivers for Monaco?
Yeah, well, I was just looking because you mentioned Williams, more points total than 23, 24 combined. It's actually more than I just am looking now. It's more than 22, 23, and 24 combined.
Wow.
Had, I think, 52 points
Wow.
combined in those 3 seasons. So, pretty good turnaround here. Consistently improving, it seems like, under James Foles. So, good job from him.
Yeah, we'll see if they have enough. There's the big dogs, Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull, McLaren. Can they breach that? Get in there? I don't know.
I mean, obviously, right now, you look at it and they're almost 3 times as many points to the next place in Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
So they're not there yet, but they're obviously a lot closer than they have been. And they seem like an organization that has turned it around and is starting to be run in the correct way, it seems like. So looks like they can consistently improve year over year, it seems like, whereas any of these other teams that may make a jump and look good in one season, Aston or Alpine or something, can just as easily fall back the next season.
Right.
So we'll see how Williams does.
Yeah, it's a good story. I mean, historic team, we're rooting for them. I've been skeptical all these years, but it seems like they finally turned that ship around. Anyway, I was talking biggest winners, biggest losers. Here, let me go first.
All right.
While I have my voice. Biggest winner, McLaren. Another double podium. Lando wins his first Monaco. They didn't get first and second, they had first and third. But also, slightly different. You mentioned Liam Lawson, but I had Hadjar as a big winner. I mean, he had the worst rookie start. I mean, he botched it on the formation lap, right? On the very first race. Yeah. But now I think he's been better than every rookie, including Kimi Antonelli, who's kind of faltered the last couple weeks. And he's in the top 10 in points, So I'm going to give it up to Hadjar. So my winners are McLaren and Hadjar. My losers, I got 2. I'm cheating. Number 1 is Mercedes. I mean, it was not long ago when they had just the most dominant car for years. What McLaren is doing now, Mercedes was doing that for years. They're not there anymore. But they're even having these reliability issues, and there are certain issues. I mean, they came away with no points. This is huge. Monaco, you get no points, Mercedes. And then, this it's gimmicky, but they're like, all right, to help maybe improve racing, let's do this mandatory 2-stop. Now, Total Wolf Austrian, he's got that dry sense of humor. I never really know if he's joking or not. But he seemed to imply that, oh yeah, they forgot there was mandatory 2-stop. and I'm mostly convinced he's joking. I sometimes wonder, I'm like, do you think they might have forgotten? Like, hey guys, there's 2 stops required on this race. So, but no points, And then, look, we all like Yuki, but man, that second Red Bull seat is just, that's the red jersey in Star Trek, I mean, who goes there just dies. And Liam Lawson, I think, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he's equaling him at least in qualifying. And he's doing well. And he seems to be improving. And Yuki does not seem to be improving. Not in that car. Yeah. Anyway, so those are my biggest winners, biggest losers. What about you?
Yeah, I can't disagree with those. For me, biggest winners, I gotta say, I mean, mentioned it earlier, but Ocon is one of my biggest winners. This season, you look at how Alpine just continues to implode, and, Gasly, typically a very reliable, strong driver, has another bad weekend. Colapinto now is, he hasn't really shown anything in the first 2 races that he's been a part of this season. Ocon, kind of fucked up his whole situation at Alpine and came out better for it. Got fired as a driver from there, got picked up by Haas, and, Haas used to be that they were, the sort of the laughing stock of F1. And now they're in 6th place, battling relatively consistently for some of those final points paying positions. I mean, they're doing well. And Ocon is sitting in there as the number one driver on that team. That's a big win for him. I think this exact race last year is what got him fired, basically.
Yeah. I mean, he's a Frenchman, on the French team, and he gets fired, and he goes to lowly Haas, and they're better. Yeah, like you said, Alpine is just imploding. So, yeah.
I guess for another big winner, sort of similar to Ocon, I am just going to say mid-pack racing. We got Williams, Haas, the Racing Bulls. I mean, that's a dogfight. And sort of any given track, it seems like one or all three of these teams can kind of scrap it out and get some points, some much needed points. I think it's going to be a fun season kind of all the way through with those teams. So
yeah, good point.
I enjoy that. As for losers, I mean, again, mentioned it already, but Fernando Alonso. I mean, what just a season he is having so far. This looked like his maybe best opportunity, aside from last week, to get really good points for him and his team, and his car explodes, basically. I mean, what can you do? But that's just got to be mentally exhausting for him. I mean, he's trying to do everything he can to score some points, even 1 point. And, he gets halfway through the race on Sunday, and then it all goes wrong. I mean, that is just tough.
Well, and even in qualifying, he was like, "Hey, man, I'm beat. I got as much out of this car as possible. We got to call this a day."
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about Alonso, but that is no fun for him in his 23rd season, I think.
Something
in
like
F1.
that. Yeah.
I mean, just insane. But then I've got another maybe a little bit more surprising loser, but that's Oscar Piastri. I mean, he has looked very solid the last few races. And this one, yeah, he got a podium. But now he's just a few points ahead of his teammate Lando. He's not built a gap that he might want. And after the race, Andrea Stella, team principal at McLaren, suggested, more or less, that Lando was their guy. He's like, yeah, he's going to go on and win basically a lot now. So, I'm thinking Oscar's got to watch out now. He doesn't seem like he has the team backing. Really, Lando came on strong in this weekend and is kind of bringing it back to him. So I think Oscar this weekend was pretty tough for him, sitting at the top and basically watching McLaren and Lando kind of catch up to him. So
yeah, that's a good point. Maybe, I know McLaren loves Lando. He's their guy, even if he shouldn't be their number one driver. I don't know about Oscar. Maybe it's, he's got Mark Webber, the former F1 driver, his manager. Maybe they don't like him. It could be that. But yeah, I mean, Oscar's been hanging. I mean, as we said, he's still got the lead, but it's been close all year. So for them to suggest it's Lando, I think is, especially at this point, is not wise. All right, switching to the soft compound, the death of old F1. So tomorrow weekend, we get to see the Monaco Grand Prix, and then soon after that ended, the Indianapolis 500, which is always fun. Just a great day for racing, and it's this juxtaposition of old Europe and Middle America, and it really plays out that way, which is always fun. Now, for all our boasting on this podcast about the American takeover Formula One, We like Monaco. That's kind of our fantasy vision of old Europe. The glitz, the glamour, all that money. Everyone's beautiful, sophisticated, and we want to see a good race. But they're forced to make it gimmicky now. I mean, are we being too harsh on Monaco?
No, I mean, I think Monaco is what it is. I think regardless of what they do with introducing new tires or forcing some number of pit stops or whatever, the fact of the matter is the racing on track is going to be dull. Even if you say, there's 5 pit stops required, or there's, you have to pit within the first 15 laps of the race or whatever it is. All that means is all of the overtaking will be done in the pits, right? So you're still going to have some people, drivers, who are just sitting around driving, even if they're going all out, right? You're still not going to be able to really get any overtaking done here. So Monaco is what it is. But guess what? Everybody still loves Monaco. It doesn't matter. You don't need to necessarily make the racing more attractive because Monaco is always attractive. I don't get the need to make it a gimmick now.
Yeah. Though my view, it's slightly different. I just come at it from a different angle, and this enrages the old school European Formula One fan because I think it's directionally true. America is having much more of an impact on Formula One. We now have 3 races. The big sponsors are American tech companies. We got the big viewing. We got Netflix, Drive to Survive. We got the Hollywood F1 movie coming out. All the social media. And the Europeans are like, hey, man, Monaco, we got to ditch Monaco. We'll keep these historic tracks. We'll keep Silverstone. Imola, we'll try. But we got to ditch Monaco. But it's us Americans. Like, no, you're not. That's our vision. That's our James Bond, our Europe of sophistication, of beauty. Everyone's hot. They're all wearing the good watches. They all know how to play Baccarat or whatever they do out there, And we're like, it's America that's keeping the Monaco Grand Prix race going. I don't know. What do you think?
It's possible. I don't know. I don't have a sense of what Europeans like or are interested in, aside from hating America, I think is
in soccer.
Yeah.
Right.
But I do believe that most Americans and most F1 or American F1 fans like Monaco and want Monaco to be on the calendar. And it's on Memorial Day every year, right before the Indy 500. It is a day of racing that everybody enjoys. And, it's one of the most hyped up and nationally broadcasted F1 races in the States. So it is clear to me that it's a big deal here.
Yeah.
Right. So,
because like I said, I think it's more than anything else, more than tradition. I think it's America keeping the Monaco Grand Prix going. That's my bold claim. Now, related to this, I saw his name is Vincenzo Landino. I'm guessing he's Italian. He had an article on the Imola Grand Prix, which was last week. And a lot of people think that's going to be jettisoned from the F1 calendar soon. And he noted that the race earned well over $40 million. And the government of Italy is throwing some cash their way. And it was a sellout and a huge success. And it nowhere near came close enough to earning the amount of money it needed to pay F1 to cover their costs.
Huh.
By millions of dollars. He's like, well, what are you going to do? It's a historic track. It's in Ferrari's backyard. The government's putting money into it. It sells out. They're making a lot of money, and it's still not enough. Which means I don't know how much Qatar and Saudi Arabia and so forth are putting forth, or promising. So I'm not really sure what we do about these places. I mean, is Silverstone making enough money? And if it's not, to pay the sort of the fees that F1 can demand, and if not, will the government pony up enough? Imola can't, races anywhere. Is there even a race anymore in Germany? It's like, if there's no race in Germany, there doesn't necessarily have to be won in England, for example. If we get rid of Imola, is that it for Italy?
Still have Monza.
Yeah, we have Monza. But that's true. We have Monza. So, I think we sort of have to have this reckoning. My thought is there's going to be this financial reckoning. We're going to have to move races around. We're still going to F1 is this growing beast. It's going to command at least 24 races a year. Maybe old Europe is not part of that. But my thought is they should just do a shock to the system, but not in 2026. And I was thinking like 2030, you get a 12 team, which we've always predicted there'll be 12 teams, get a whole new set of regulations, and then like have a completely revamped calendar. And maybe one year we have Silverstone. Maybe one year we find a track that's worthy of F1 back in Germany. We'll do one race in Italy, one race in France, maybe, where they swap back every other year. Something like that.
Yeah, it could be interesting. I mean, you mentioned Germany and France. Neither one of those countries have a Grand Prix on the calendar anymore, right? Hockenheim and Nürburgring are both gone.
Right. And Spain will be moving, right?
Right.
And Barcelona's pretty much gone.
I think Netherlands this is the last year that they're having it, the Dutch Grand Prix, right? So there's quite a few on the calendar that it's not set really whether or not we'll have them. I think there are a few that sort of should remain, right? Especially because they give us good racing. Silverstone is one. Spa in Belgium is another.
Yeah, those are both usually very good.
Austria, I think, is a good one. That's right in kind of Red Bull's backyard almost, right? So there are a few that I think are almost required, but it is interesting. And I think ultimately, like, this will also peeve some European fans, but like, raise your fucking ticket prices. I know that's their whole big thing. They're like, oh, American tickets are so expensive. And yes, they are. But guess what? We can fucking pay F1 what they need in order to put on a race, right? So figure it out if you want to keep races.
Yep. I just bought college football tickets, and it's over $100 a ticket. That's not for good seats. Okay, let me see. It may not be over $100 a ticket, but for bad seats, the worst seats that you could say in an F1 race, in a hard balcony, off on some turn that isn't the best spot to see anything, they would be at least $75 each. And I think it's more than that. So yeah, an F1 race, you want, right. But you're right. Maybe it's ticket prices, because I'm not sure. I mean, in America, the state government might throw in some money, but the federal government is not going to be throwing money to Miami. Oh, we got to support the Miami Grand Prix or the Texas Grand Prix or Las Vegas. This is not happening.
Right. Yeah, we'll see. I could see a big shift in the way the calendar looks, and that probably would be hit with a lot of backlash from traditionalists, but things are gonna have to change, I think.
Across the line, that's our segment where we predict the top 5 for the next race. The next race is next week in Spain. We've had our old Europe triple header. Spain has been very, very good to Max and to Lewis. Last year, Max won, edged out Lando Norris, with Lewis getting third. In Across the Line, we predict the top 5 for the next race. If we get it right, if we get that driver right, we get a point. If we get him in the exact right spot. So, for example, I pick Max to win and he wins, I get 3 points. If I pick Max to win and he comes in fourth, I get 1 point. Okay, but before we make our predictions, Patrick, what are the current standings of Across the Line?
Okay, this was pretty much an even heat this week. So coming in, you were leading 28-25 after 7 races. So final top 5 from this race was Norris, Leclerc, Piastri, Verstappen, Hamilton. Your picks were Leclerc, Piastri, Verstappen, Sainz, Gasly. So you got 1 point each for Leclerc, Piastri, and Verstappen. None of them were in the exact finishing position, but all of them in the top 5. I had Hamilton, Norris, Russell, Albon, Alonso. So I got 1 point each for Hamilton and Norris. Again, both in the top 5, but not in the positions that I picked them in. So that brings our total after 8 races. You are on 31 points to my 27. So just a 4-point lead.
Nice. Well, I gained a point, which is better. But when you're repeating the top 5 finish from Monaco, it made me think. So Lando, Charles, Oscar, Max, Lewis, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can make the case those are the 5 best drivers currently on the grid. Some might say, oh, what about Alonso? What about Albon? What about Sainz? What about Russell? Okay, but I'm just saying, like, a race decided mostly on Saturday in qualifying, those might be your top 5 drivers. So
Might be.
yeah. Okay, who goes first?
You have first pick for Spain.
Nice. Well, I said this has been very good, this race for Max and Lewis the past several years. Lando came in second last year. I think he's got a much better car, and he's on a roll. I'm going with Lando.
Nice. Then I'm going to say I think Oscar's going to be peeved about this. So I'm going to say he's coming back hard in Spain. He'll take the win. And then I don't see how we can keep Max off the podium 2 races in a row. So I'm going to put Verstappen up there.
Nice. Well, I said this has been good to Max and Lewis. Things have been working out well for Ferrari. I mean, they've not been underperforming. They did not, I think, in Monaco. So I'm going to go Lewis, then Charles.
Ooh, dang. Let's see. Then I'm going to say that Mercedes figures out their reliability issues over this next week. And Russell puts in a good performance, gets back on the podium. And then I will take Carlos Sainz, P4.
Nice. I'm going to go with his teammate, Alex Albon. And my 5th, because you've mentioned him multiple times and he had such a good showing, and I think it's Haas's week, Esteban Ocon.
Ooh.
So my top 5, Lando, Lewis, Charles, Alex Albon, and Esteban Ocon. Yours are, for the Spanish Grand Prix, Oscar Piastri, Max Verstappen, George Russell, Carlos Sainz, and
Liam Lawson.
That would be fantastic. Any crazy predictions, Patrick?
Well, so my crazy prediction has to do with the Monaco Grand Prix, because this is the Monaco episode. And that is that naturally it will stay on the F1 calendar as it's scheduled to for the next, 7 years till 2031, something like that. However, they're not going to make it gimmicky, but the Monaco Grand Prix will not count for points going forward. They'll have it on the calendar. F1 will go to Monaco, but there will be no points awarded for the race.
Now that's crazy. That's crazy talk, Patrick. That's legit crazy talk.
Because who wants to see somebody just in a procession, right? Scoring points. It's like that Belgian Grand Prix from a few years ago that was rained out. So they just went 2 laps with the safety car. Right. And then they all scored points in the positions that they qualified in. Like, nobody wants to see that. Or nobody wants to see the points be awarded on Saturday, right? That's annoying. So they won't do it. They'll have a whole weekend, but they'll just say, look, like, you won't score points. You'll be a Monaco race winner if you win this race, but no points come from it.
Maybe make it like in baseball, the All-Star weekend, or hockey does this. And there's a game, but it doesn't really count, and there's festivities. Like, I've been hammering on this idea of an F1 seniors tour. We'll get Alonso and Lewis to join. We'll get Jenson Button. We'll bring back Kimi. Maybe Sebastian Vettel. Get a couple guys from Indy. Maybe do something like that. No points. Our current racers will drive Maybe they'll do qualifying. Maybe they'll even let them try a different car. Who knows? I don't think they will do that, but and then like, okay, maybe Sunday it's the champions race. We'll get Alonso, Lewis, Kimi. I don't know, Juan Pablo, Sato from Indy, some other guys. I think that might work too. So nice. I don't really have much of a crazy prediction. I saw during it was either the Grand Prix or Indy a commercial for the Brad Pitt F1 movie. I am not predicting it will flop. I'm predicting it will make back its investment. But I also am predicting it's not going to be very good. It looks good at what Hollywood does. Great camera angles, a lot of action, but just what Hollywood does not do well is emotional resonance. And I felt nothing really watching it other than, oh, that looks cool. So, but they got Brad Pitt. They're throwing a ton of money at it. They're marketing it. They even got all the drivers to come and watch it, talk about it. So that's kind of my prediction is it will make its money back. All right. I want to thank you all for listening to everybody's most beloved father and son F1 podcast. It is much appreciated. We hope you tell a friend and subscribe. And for now, we are lights out.
See ya. Thanks for listening.
You just finished listening to Hard Compound, recorded in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and around the world.